So we're here today with Blake Sims, who's the founder of Epic Solutions, which is a consultancy that works with schools and districts to bring design thinking into the classroom. Blake's been an essential part of our team developing this course, and so we wanted to tap into some of her expertise here. Blake, one of the things that we've talked about a bunch recently is what kind of work is already happening in schools, which maybe isn't described as design thinking, but really maps nicely onto the design thinking process. What thoughts do you have about that?
Sure. I think a lot of schools and teachers are already doing most of this work, and the design thinking process just gives a common language and set of tools that can be used cross-disciplinary. When I think about the most obvious examples for me are the writing process and the scientific method. Those are two processes teachers are already using with students that mirror the process of the design thinking process.
So when writing teachers or English teachers, history teachers are doing the writing process, they're saying you're going to create a draft, which is essentially a prototype. You're going to try out that prototype by giving it to a reader and see if they react emotionally the way you want them to, or whether they react to your evidentiary reasoning and you persuade them the way you want them to. And then you take that draft after you get that feedback and you revise it and you sort of go through that cycle.
Another part I think a lot of teachers are bringing in more and more, especially in hands-on projects, is the share and the reflect piece, which is a crucial part for students to be able to make those connections and see the broader application of what they're learning. Mm-hmm. And the design thinking process allows us a more formal way of making sure we're articulating and sharing it, especially back with users, to get some of that genuine feedback.
Yeah. Another place that I see these kinds of things happening in schools is in the humanities. There's quite a bit of work towards discovering, understanding problems, empathizing with people, problem finding. I mean, a lot of what we ask students to do when they read novels and try to understand the motivations of characters or where they're coming from, or when we do especially social history kind of work in the social study where we're trying to understand how people in a particular time in a particular context understood their lives and made decisions based on that understanding. That seems to map nicely onto some of the phases of sort of discover and focus.
Mm-hmm. I think what's unique about design thinking is the human-centered piece and the idea of having a user. Mm-hmm. And that can be a little tricky for some teachers depending on the subject matter. And so what I've talked a lot with teachers about is identifying a user. And sometimes that might be the user is another student, that his or her class might be creating a solution for another grade level or something that they're going to present to peers or their parents. Mm-hmm. And that way you're bringing in some of that human-centered design where you're thinking more about how does my solution communicate the ideas appropriately to that user. Another thing, especially for humanities teachers, is thinking about those characters in the stories, historical figures, the people that are behind what they're reading and learning about, and how to create solutions based on problems that they experience within the literature or within their daily lives. I think bringing in that user piece and the human-centered design element of design thinking is a great way for science teachers to think more about who these solutions are for, who will benefit from them, rather than creating solutions in more of a vacuum setting.
Right, where the context is a little bit less clear.